Ghost on the Other Side of Life. Chapter 1. The Last Breath. Sam Connor stepped out of the elevator, feeling the comforting warmth of Molly's hand intertwined with his. It was a night like any other, their laughter mingling with the hum of the city as they walked back to their apartment. New York's bustling streets were a blur of lights and energy, but all Sam could focus on was Molly. Her eyes sparkled under the street lights, and the world felt like it could stop for just them. Everything changed in an instant. As they turned the corner into a darkened alleyway, a shadow loomed. A figure emerged from the darkness, face obscured by a hood. There was a scuffle, a demand for money, and before Sam could fully comprehend the danger, there was a flash of metal. The cold, sharp sensation of the knife slicing into his abdomen felt unreal. Molly screamed, her voice distant as Sam's body crumpled to the ground. Time slowed as he lay there, blood pooling beneath him, the sounds of the city fading away. He could feel Molly's hands frantically pressing against his wound, her sobs echoing in his ears, but the world around him dimmed. His breath grew shallow, the light in his eyes flickering as he gazed up at the stars one last time. Then, nothing. Sam stood in the alleyway, confused. The pain was gone, his vision clear, yet everything around him seemed off. The air felt thick, as if he were underwater, and the sounds of the city were muffled. He turned to Molly, but something was wrong. She was still kneeling, sobbing over a body. His body. A cold chill washed over him. He called out to her, his voice trembling, but she couldn't hear him. She couldn't see him. Sam's heart pounded in his chest, or at least, it would have if he still had a heart. He reached for her, his hand passing through her like mist. Sam Connor was dead. But he was still here. And something told him that his death was not the end. Will Sam be able to communicate with Molly before it's too late? Subscribe and share to find out what happens next in this suspenseful journey of love beyond the grave. Chapter 2. The Awakening. Days passed in a blur. Sam wandered through the apartment he had shared with Molly, watching as she moved through the motions of life, her heart shattered into pieces. She tried to keep herself busy, working, cleaning, anything to drown out the pain, but Sam saw the moments when she would collapse onto their bed, clutching his shirt, sobbing uncontrollably. He wanted so desperately to comfort her, to hold her and tell her everything would be okay. But every time he tried to touch her, he passed right through her, like a ghost. A ghost. The realization hit him with a force that made him stagger. That's what he was now. A spirit, trapped between life and whatever came next. And the worst part was, he didn't know why. There had to be a reason, though. He could feel it deep within him. His death wasn't an accident. The attack that night, it felt deliberate. Targeted. But why? Who would want him dead? Sam's thoughts were interrupted by a strange sensation, a pull, like an invisible string tugging at him. He followed it, feeling as though he had no choice but to go where it led. It wasn't long before he found himself in a dingy, cluttered office. There, sitting behind a desk, was a woman with wild hair and a worn expression, muttering to herself as she shuffled through papers. Her name was Oda Mae Brown, and though Sam didn't know it yet, she was his only chance to make contact with the living. Oda Mae's head snapped up as Sam entered the room. Her eyes widened, and she stood up so quickly that her chair tipped over. "Oh no, no, no. I don't do this anymore," she exclaimed, waving her hands as though she could shoo him away. "I am done with this ghost nonsense." Sam blinked. She could see him. "You can see me?" Sam asked, surprised. Oda Mae groaned, rubbing her temples. "Why do they always come to me?" She muttered. "Yes, I can see you. And hear you. And let me tell you, I do not want to be involved in whatever unfinished business you've got." Sam stepped closer, desperation creeping into his voice. "Please, I need your help. My wife, Molly, she's in danger." Oda Mae narrowed her eyes, crossing her arms. "Danger? From who?" "I don't know," Sam admitted, his frustration growing. "But I know my death wasn't an accident. I need to protect her." Oda Mae stared at him for a long moment before sighing deeply. "Why do I always get dragged into this?" And so, a reluctant partnership was born. Chapter 3. The First Warning. Oda Mae Brown paced the length of her small, cluttered office, muttering to herself. She had been through a lot in her life, but talking to dead people was something she had hoped to leave in her past. Yet here she was again, staring at a ghost who looked more desperate than most. "You're sure your wife's in danger?" she asked, her skepticism apparent. Sam's form flickered as he moved closer, his expression urgent. "Yes. I don't know how or why, but I can feel it. Something's not right. I was murdered, Oda Mae. And whoever did it, they're not done." Oda Mae let out a long, exasperated sigh. "Why does this stuff always find me?" she grumbled. But there was something in Sam's voice, an edge of sincerity, of love, that made her pause. She glanced over at him, her resolve weakening. She had never been able to ignore someone in real need. "All right," she finally said, crossing her arms. "But I'm not promising anything. If this gets too crazy, I'm out." Sam nodded, relief flooding him. "Thank you. That's all I need." Oda Mae rolled her eyes, reaching for her coat. "Don't thank me yet. We'll see if this actually works." They set off toward Molly's apartment, Sam leading the way. As they neared the building, Sam noticed something that made his pulse, if he still had one, quicken. Across the street, a man stood leaning against a car, watching Molly's apartment with too much interest. Sam's ghostly form bristled with anger as he recognized the man's face. It was the same man from the alley, the one who had killed him. "That's him," Sam shouted, pointing at the man. Oda Mae, not being able to see what Sam was pointing at, squinted in confusion. "What are you talking about?" "That's the guy who killed me," Sam said through gritted teeth, his translucent form pulsing with anger. "He's watching her. He's waiting for something." Oda Mae's eyes widened, though she still couldn't see what Sam was talking about. "You're saying your killer is stalking your wife?" "Oh, this just keeps getting better and better." Sam floated forward, panic surging in his chest. He couldn't let that man get to Molly. Not again. "We need to warn her." Oda Mae hesitated. "Warn her how? She can't see you, remember?" Sam's frustration boiled over. He couldn't just stand by and do nothing. "You have to tell her. You're the only one who can." Oda Mae groaned. "You're really pushing it, Ghostman." But Sam didn't have time for Oda Mae's reluctance. Molly's life was at stake. "Please, Oda Mae. If you don't tell her, she'll be next." The weight of Sam's words hung in the air. Oda Mae finally gave in, nodding slowly. "All right, fine. But if she calls the cops on me, I'm blaming you." Sam watched anxiously as Oda Mae approached Molly's apartment. He could only hope that Molly would believe her, before it was too late. Will Molly believe Oda Mae's warning before the killer strikes again? Don't miss the next chapter. Subscribe and share to keep the suspense going. Chapter 4. The Connection. Oda Mae stood outside Molly's door, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't know what she was more afraid of, talking to a grieving widow about ghosts or being completely ignored as some kind of fraud. She shot a glance over her shoulder, where Sam hovered nervously, his eyes locked on the door. "You owe me big time for this," Oda Mae muttered under her breath before knocking. It took a moment, but the door slowly opened, revealing Molly. Her eyes were red, her face pale, the weight of grief etched into her every feature. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice hoarse from crying. Oda Mae swallowed hard, her usual bravado slipping away. "Hi, my name's Oda Mae Brown. I know this is going to sound crazy, but I need to talk to you about Sam." Molly's eyes widened, her hand gripping the doorframe for support. "Sam? How do you know about Sam?" Oda Mae shifted uncomfortably, feeling the tension rise. "Well, see, the thing is, I can talk to him. He's still here. With us. Right now." Molly's expression shifted from shock to disbelief, her body stiffening. "Is this some kind of sick joke?" she demanded, her voice sharp with anger. No. It's not a joke," Oda Mae rushed to explain, throwing up her hands. "I know it sounds crazy, but I can see him. He's here right now, and he's worried about you. He says you're in danger." Molly's face paled further, but she remained guarded. "I don't believe in this psychic nonsense." Sam, floating beside them, his desperation palpable, called out to Oda Mae. "Tell her about the song. Unchained Melody. It was our song. She'll know." Oda Mae, hesitant but determined, leaned closer. "He says? Unchained Melody was your song. You played it together. You know what I'm talking about, right? At the mention of the song, Molly's breath caught. Her eyes filled with tears as she stared at Oda Mae, the disbelief slowly melting into something softer, something closer to hope. How could you know that? Molly whispered, her voice trembling. Oda Mae took a deep breath. Because he's standing right here. And he's trying to protect you. Molly hesitated, her mind battling with her heart. Slowly, she opened the door wider, inviting Oda Mae inside. She didn't know what to believe anymore, but if there was a chance, just a chance, that Sam was still with her, she had to take it. What will Molly discover now that she's opened the door? Don't miss the next chapter in this supernatural tale of love and suspense. Subscribe and share to find out what happens next. Chapter 5. The Hidden Truth. Inside the apartment, the air felt thick with tension. Oda Mae followed Molly into the living room, her eyes scanning the space. Sam stood nearby, watching as Molly sat down on the couch, her fingers trembling as they clasped together in her lap. I don't know if I can believe this, Molly admitted, her voice fragile. I don't understand how any of this is possible. Oda Mae sat across from her, choosing her words carefully. I don't blame you for being skeptical. But trust me, Sam's here. He's been trying to reach you, to warn you about what's coming. Molly's breath hitched, her eyes searching the room as if hoping to catch a glimpse of Sam herself. Warn me about what? What's going on? Sam moved closer, his form flickering with the intensity of his emotions. Tell her it wasn't a random mugging, he said, his voice firm. The men who killed me, it wasn't just about money. It was planned? Oda Mae nodded, repeating Sam's words. He says it wasn't just a random attack. Someone wanted him dead. And that same person, whoever they are, they're still out there. Watching you. Molly's eyes widened in shock. But why? Why would anyone want to kill Sam? Sam's face twisted with frustration. I don't know. But there's something more to this. Something I'm missing. Oda Mae relayed his message, her voice low. He doesn't know yet, but there's something bigger going on. Something he's trying to figure out. Molly sat in stunned silence, the reality of the situation sinking in. He always said he was working on something important at the office, but he never told me the details. He was so careful about it. Sam's ghostly form seemed to glow with newfound determination. That's it. My job. It has to be connected. Oda Mae perked up, her eyes narrowing in thought. What kind of work did he do? Molly hesitated, her mind racing through memories. He worked in banking. Corporate finance, mergers, that kind of thing. But in the last few months, he was involved in something different, something more secretive. He said it was high stakes. Sam's memories began flooding back, the pieces of the puzzle slowly falling into place. It wasn't just banking. There were millions involved. Illegal money transfers. Someone in the firm was covering it up, and I was getting close to exposing them. Oda Mae's eyes widened as she relayed the message. Sam says it had to do with illegal money transfers. Someone at his firm was behind it, and he was getting too close to the truth. Molly's face drained of color. Oh my God. Sam had mentioned something about discrepancies in the accounts, but I didn't realize it was that serious. Sam's form pulsed with urgency. That's why they killed me. To stop me from finding out more. Molly's hand flew to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. And now they're after me too. Oda Mae leaned forward, her voice steady. Molly, you need to be careful. Whoever did this isn't going to stop. They see you as a loose end. Molly's tears spilled over, fear tightening in her chest. What do? I can't just sit here and wait for them to come after me. Sam's voice was resolute. We need proof. There has to be something I left behind. Evidence of the fraud. If we can find it, we can stop them. Oda Mae stood up, determination replacing her previous reluctance. Looks like we've got a mission. Where should we start? Molly wiped her tears, a flicker of hope stirring within her. Sam had a private study at the firm. Maybe there's something there. Sam nodded, his translucent form glowing with resolve. That's it. The files, they're hidden in my office. You'll find everything there. Oda Mae met Molly's gaze, her voice firm. Looks like we're headed to the office. If there's any chance of stopping these people, that's where we'll find the answers. Molly took a deep breath, steeling herself for what was to come. Let's do it. For Sam. Will Molly and Oda Mae find the evidence before it's too late? Subscribe and share to follow their dangerous search for the truth in the next chapter. Chapter 6. The Final Stand. The offices of the firm were eerily quiet as Molly and Oda Mae slipped through the glass doors, the late hour ensuring no one was around. The shadows of the towering skyscrapers outside cast long, ominous streaks of darkness across the floor, adding to the tension that hung in the air. Molly's heart raced as she led the way to Sam's private study, her hands shaking slightly. Oda Mae trailed behind, her eyes darting around nervously, not entirely convinced they wouldn't be caught at any moment. "This place gives me the creeps," Oda Mae whispered, her voice barely audible in the vast, empty space. Molly nodded, swallowing the lump of anxiety in her throat. "It feels different without Sam here." As they reached the door to Sam's office, Molly hesitated, her hand resting on the knob. Memories of Sam working late into the night flooded her mind, his smile, the way he would bring her coffee, the soft hum of music in the background. The thought that this was where he had uncovered something that ultimately led to his death made her stomach churn. "We have to do this," she whispered to herself, gathering her courage. Oda Mae gave her an encouraging nod, and together, they stepped inside. The room was exactly as Sam had left it. Papers were neatly stacked on the desk, his laptop still open but locked with a password. Molly moved toward the desk, her hands shaking as she began searching through the files. "There has to be something here," she muttered, her eyes scanning for any sign of the evidence Sam had hidden. Sam's ghost appeared beside them, his gaze fixed on the desk. "Check the bottom drawer. There's a hidden compartment." Molly heard Oda Mae's voice echo the instructions. "Check the bottom drawer. Hidden compartment." Molly's breath caught as she pulled open the drawer and felt along the inside, her fingers grazing the edges until she found a small latch. She flicked it open, revealing a stack of papers tucked away, hidden from sight. "This is it," Molly whispered, pulling the files out. Her eyes scanned the documents, bank statements, transfer records, all of it pointing to the illegal activities Sam had uncovered. Before she could react, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. "They're coming," Sam warned, his form flickering with panic. Molly's heart leapt into her throat as she stuffed the documents into her bag. "We need to go. Now." But as they turned to leave, the door swung open. Standing in the doorway was Carl, Sam's old colleague. His face twisted with cold fury, a gun clenched in his hand. "I knew you'd come here," Carl sneered, his voice dripping with menace. "You should have stayed out of this, Molly." Molly froze, fear paralyzing her as Carl stepped closer, the barrel of the gun aimed directly at her. Oda Mae gasped, her eyes wide with terror. Sam's ghost surged forward, his rage exploding. "Carl, you did this. You killed me." Carl smirked, though he couldn't see or hear Sam. "It's a shame, really. Sam should have known better than to dig where he didn't belong." Time seemed to freeze. Molly's mind raced, searching for a way out, but before she could react, the room plunged into chaos. Will Molly escape Carl's clutches, and will Sam finally bring justice from beyond the grave? Don't miss the thrilling conclusion. Subscribe and share for the final twist in this supernatural journey. The end.